thank you everyone for both in-person and online audiences. Thank you for taking the time to come out to our IT Career Exploration panel for the winter. My name is Andre Tan. I am the Career Experiences Coordinator out of our Career Experiences office here at Metro Community College. And our office helps with providing career experiences such as this to help you explore your career pathways, get to know what's out there, and maybe network a little bit too. So the overall agenda for today is going to be the first hour from 10:30 to 11:30-ish is going to be a structured panel experience where I ask a question and then our panelists would answer. And also thank you so much for taking the time today, our panelists, for talking to our students here at Metro Community College. And then towards the end of it, between 11:30, 40-ish to 12 o'clock, we'll just have kind of like an open, unstructured networking type interaction for everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with introducing our panel. We have 5 panelists today with us, representing about 4 different companies. Yep. So the first panelist that we have is Brandon Gordon. He is a proud Iowa State University alumni and president of Run Networks, which is a managed IT services company based in Omaha. He started Run Networks in 2007 and has over 20 years of experience in business IT. And Brandon encourages his IT team to follow the company's core values of being passionate about IT services and providing those services with value and efficiency. And when Brandon's not at his computer saving the business world, he is under the hood of his 1974 MGB tuning carburetors. He and his wife, Sarah, have been married since 2001 and have 3 girls. And next on our panel is Ben Anderson. Ben Anderson is also from Run Networks. He is a shareholder and oversees business development for Run Networks. In his role, Ben is able to help businesses optimize their technology to better their business, improve their efficiency, and better protect themselves. And then we're going to skip the third person who's not here yet. Hopefully she'll show up later. We have also our next person, Jake Rettig. He is a data center technician at Google, bringing 6 years of experience in the IT field. His passion for technology began in South Dakota, where he led a competitive VEX robotics team and coached best robotics competitions. This early experience fueled his pursuit of a career in technology, leading him to join the Air Force Reserves as a cyber defense operator and earn a degree in information technology security from Southeast Technical College. He further solidified his expertise with a Bachelor of Science in Information Technology in 2023. And then next we have Damian de Rozairo. He is a seasoned software architect and developer with over 30 years of expertise in encryption, security, and enterprise payments. And here I'm going to list, I think, 3 or 4 different companies that he's associated with. He founded Paxus, a company that powers financial institutions worldwide with innovative transaction authorization and data management solutions, processing millions of banking transactions daily. He was also a co-founder of Telephony at Work, a groundbreaking company in IP-based contact center solutions, later acquired by Oracle. At V2 Verify, Damian leads the development of voice biometric authentication technology that simplifies and secures user authentication processes. And at Major Talent, he helps bridge the gap between military experience and civilian careers. With a unique blend of business and technical acumen, Damian continues to lead transformative initiatives across multiple industries. And last, we have John Mitchell from Mutual of Omaha. He is the Principal Database Administrator at Mutual of Omaha. John has 25 years experience in the IT industry, started his IT career as a software developer, later moving on to database administration. John graduated from Wayne State College in 2001 with a bachelor's degree in computer information systems. John and his wife, Katie, have 3 daughters, 2 of whom are currently enrolled at MCC. So welcome to our panelists. We're going to go ahead and get started with questions. And the way that this is going to work is we have 2 mics, 1 per table. You'll probably going to have to share and pass it around. Any order is fine with me. So we'll just go based on whoever feels like they want to volunteer to go first. So the first question is, introduce yourself and briefly describe your position and responsibilities. And can you describe a typical day or week in your current role? Oh, actually, before we get started, though, I'm going to actually introduce Maraya, too. Maraya White is an Omaha native. She attended MCC, where she received her associate's degree in full stack web development in 2022. So she's an alumna. And she then continued her higher education at UNO, where she is currently pursuing her bachelor's degree in computer science. In 2021, Maraya started working at Physicians Mutual as an automation tester intern. And in March of 2024, she accepted a full-time salaried position with the company. So again, I'll repeat the first question for our panelists here. So introduce yourself and briefly describe your position responsibilities. And can you describe a typical day or week in your current role, if such a thing exists for your role?
I'll start. My name is Brandon Gordon with Run Networks. I will say that one of the things that is different about a managed service provider is that we have a lot of clients, and every one of those clients is different. So what that means is every day is different for us. It's not the same network. It's a lot of different networks, a lot of different responsibilities for that, and each client has their own individual application that they think is the most important application, and we're trying to support that. So of course our goal is to protect that the user, their data, make sure it's all backed up, manage it, and just take care of the users. The actual week, mostly I would say it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, mostly. And it's, we have two core goals. One is help desk, meaning support the users. And the other side of it is the security side, which is protecting the data. And that varies depending on what it is. But that's our two main goals for the week. And we just kind of take what comes to us and take care of it.
Hey guys, my name is Ben. I'm with Run Networks. Brandon is our technical lead, and so he kind of helps guide our technical team, making sure we're doing the right things, adhering to compliance, and taking care of some of the higher level technical issues, whether it be storage arrays not working, or applications running slow, or network traffic not flowing the way that people intend it to. It's a lot of troubleshooting, as well as a lot of strategy. Looking forward, figuring out how do we plan to protect things, how do we adapt to the environment. My role is partially business development and partially VCIO. And so I act as a fractional CIO for a number of companies that are between 25 and 200 employees. And a decent portion of my week is actually spent recapping services that we're providing to them. Things like, here's what's going on with your help desk. Here's the statuses of your backups. Here are some security reports going through maybe vulnerabilities, or incidences that have occurred in the case of like email compromises and those sorts of things, right? Accompanied by that is going through the planning side of things. So I'm the one talking to our clients about strategy, long-term planning. When do you need to replace hardware? When do we need to look at migrating something to the cloud? What does moving to the cloud entail for the company? Those sorts of things, right? So part of my job is doing the sales as they come in. And selling hardware as well as our services. But I would say the majority of my role is doing that fractional CIO and being a liaison between our service team and the client. And so that's kind of where I spend my time.
Hello, my name is Maraya White. I am an automation tester at Physicians Mutual. So basically what my role is, I basically test the software or the applications that my specific team is working on at that moment. What a typical day in my role would look like, it's Monday through Friday, on the regular 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever you choose. You can choose your hours. We work on, as we're working on new development, new software, I make sure that that's functional as it should be, as well as testing the previous software or the previous changes that we may have made to existing applications to make sure that those are still working as they should be, making sure there's nothing broken. Obviously, for our users, we don't want there to be a problem with the application that we don't know about. So we're constantly testing the existing applications, the existing changes that we've previously made, just to make sure that everything is up and running as it should be. So that's what a day in my role would look like.
I am Jake. I'm a data center technician at Google, and what my day-to-day looks like is it's very dependent on which location, what people work with. But basically, the high level is we build and repair computers. So, if anybody in this room has built a computer before, you know the struggles that come with it. Now, imagine doing that at greater scale and with many, many more devices. When I'm not building computers, I'm also working with software engineers, working with resource engineers to help figure out more complex issues, whether it be software or hardware, and basically figuring out why devices are not working. And when the devices are working, the internet works as it should, which is basically like mostly what Google does is the internet. So.
My name is Damian Rozairo. As you see on the board, I'm kind of involved in a few companies, and there's the fourth one added to that is a company called Nebraska Innovation Labs, and it's a nonprofit. We hire a lot of interns from your organization here, from your college here. So my typical week, Mondays and Wednesdays, is meeting with my teams. We run at any given point probably 20 to 30 parallel projects. Meeting with the teams, figuring out the direction of where we're going to go, what we're going to do, how we're going to build things. And the rest of the time is working with clients to make sure we're understanding their requirements on our deliveries. Our contracts range from small businesses all the way to the DoD. So we actually do run some pretty large DoD contracts from V2 Verify on the security side. So as you can imagine, securing DoD networks with biometrics is quite a complex business. So spend a lot of time with the DoD and with our customers trying to figure out how to make sure things are secure. Department of Defense, yes. Specifically Stratcom here in Nebraska.
Hi, I'm John Mitchell. I am the Principal Database Administrator at Mutual of Omaha. For those of you familiar with the Agile, essentially that's a solution lead, technical type of role. A day-to-day in the life of a DBA. Our number one job, my team's number one job, is securing the enterprise's data. We're responsible, as a DBA organization, we're responsible for SQL Server, Oracle, UDB, and then IBM's DB2 on mainframe. So we have a very diverse set of data management tools. It could, typical day, typical week could involve anything from production support, break fix type things. Could be tickets through our ticketing system, developers saying, hey, I've got this really slow query, I need some help, it could just be, hey, I've got this database table I put together. Can I get a DBA to take a look at it? Tell me, does this make sense? Am I using the right data types? Could be larger project work too. As a DBA, we're right in the middle of the technology stack. We've got the developers above us, the system administrators below us. There's always operating system currency work to do. There's always security patching to do. So we do a lot of that. And then if we're not involved in something like that, probably just reading up and trying to stay current on the technologies. Even though these are the three big DBMSs, Oracle, UDB, SQL Server, they're constantly changing, constantly new things to learn. So that's a typical day for us.
Thank you for that first response. I think one of the things that we're really excited to make the connection for our students is how did you, what's your journey coming to this position, and how did you first become interested in your field, and what educational and professional steps did you take to reach your current position? And also, I'm also curious about like things where you have to kind of learn on the job as well. So if you can break that down for us. For each of you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first, and we'll just work back. So I started my IT journey about 25 years ago. I started as a software developer. For some of the older people in the room, maybe you remember Visual Basic. Yeah, okay, well, that's where I started doing client-server applications. I did that for about 12 years. And by the end of the 12 years, I looked back and discovered I'm writing a lot of the same code over and over and over. I'm doing the same reports over and over. I was starting to get a little bit burned out. I needed something different. The company I was with at that time had a junior DBA position that was opened up specifically for Oracle, and so I applied and was accepted. It was quite the pivot for me. I went to school, I think they said CIS, which is a mix of computers and business, so accounting, marketing, business law. But at the same time, I had exposure to some programming classes, computer theory, things like that. Switching from application development to DBA really required me to do a pivot on my skill set, being in infrastructure where you're supporting the systems that application developers are using to build their apps on. It is different than writing code. I was very lucky. When I made the switch, the company was willing to invest in me and my technical skills. They sent me to classes so that I could get up to speed on database technology, and then just slowly, over a period of several months, increase the amount of responsibility that I had. I was also paired up with a more senior person who helped mentor me and make sure I was coming along on my journey. I would say that's extremely important. Find a mentor. Find somebody that really cares about you and is going to invest their time and energy into you to help grow you. I think I would owe a large part of my success to people being there on that journey.
Well, my journey is kind of pretty non-typical. I've been in computers about 40 years, so that 30, I think that number was wrong. My first job, I was in 3 months into my sophomore year in high school when I got hired to write software for an ATM in a bank. This was when ATMs were new, so this is when, talking mid-80s. From there, grew and worked through that bank, learned how to write software, actually had the privilege now when I think back of writing the first driver to drive a credit card machine. And I would have been 19 years old at the time. So this is when computers are new. There was not a lot of documentation. There was not a lot of stuff done. We were converting banks from paper to digital. That's when I started my career. Got to my mid-20s, decided that I could either go back to college and get a degree if I wanted to really progress up a bank or go start a company. So I started a company writing software for banks and licensed our first software at 26 to Bank of America in the US. I grew up in Australia, moved over here. So pretty non-typical journey. I taught myself how to program, which meant working 8 hours a day at the bank and 8 to 10 hours a day at home for 20 years, learning how to program, started in assembler and moved up. And now I've actually got a little away from the actual writing code. Some of our core software that we still sell has some code that I've written in assembler, and I still work on that every so often. But now I am more the guy that gives you architecture and design and trying to tell people how to do things and trying to guide our day-to-day lives. So very non-typical way to grow. But for me, what got me here is just a drive. I just don't give up, whatever it is. And if you have the relentless drive, you can learn anything. That's kind of what I proved. I tell a lot of people I hire now, if you're in your early days, if you get a job for 8 hours, it really means you have to work 16 in your first 10 years of life, really, to make it. Because you really work hard, learn what you got to learn the industry you're working in, learn the technology you're working with. And if you set yourself up with a really good reputation, really good knowledge base from there, it's easy career to grow in. IT is a great world to be in.
So I've only been in the industry for about 6 years. I was going to a trade school up in Sioux Falls, and I landed an internship with a big hospital. That internship was 2 6-month periods, and that was basically my first official entry to technology. Going back even before that, I've always had, an interest, or, what makes technology work. It's so interesting. There's the software side. There's the hardware side. There's how everything is basically like a symphony that works together. And having that curiosity, I think, is the biggest thing when it comes to, where I am now in tech. Also, throughout that time, education does play a role, but going to school is a very, very good thing, but it's all about what you actually take and what you learn. So without a doubt, probably the biggest thing that I've learned was, treat people right and always be curious, because technology is going to change. From when I started versus when these other panelists started in technology, the entire technology world has changed, and it will continue to change. And it takes curiosity. It takes a need to stay current, to be competitive. And that's about all what I can provide, because, like I said, I'm only 6 years in the industry, so I'm fairly new.
Hello. Okay. Make sure it's on. So my IT, or my interest in IT, started the summer before I went into my junior year of high school, which I guess would have been 9 years ago now. Oh my gosh. So I actually learned about this program, or this camp called Highlander Code Camp. It was for the summer. We got like a stipend every week, and we also got a free MacBook, which is why I wanted to do it. I'm like, oh my God, I get a free MacBook for school. Like, I didn't know, I was not interested in IT at all before I did the camp. I just was going to do something with my summer. I got paid, I learned something new, and I got a free MacBook out of it. But actually through that code camp, I actually did grow a love for IT. And so by the end of that camp, I was thinking to myself, I could, maybe make a career out of this, because before that, I was unsure of what I wanted to go to college for, what I wanted to do in my life. But, after that camp, coming out of there and all of the knowledge that we got, all of the professionals that we met, I was really interested in IT at that point. So that led me to coming to Metro to pursue a degree in full stack web development. And then to basically get my degree, we had to do internships. So how I found the position at Physicians Mutual was actually from Art Brown in the back. He sent me the position, for me to apply to basically just fulfill the internship that I had to do to get my degree. I didn't know anything about automation testing before I applied for the position. I was just like, I need something to do so I can get up out of here and get my degree. So I'm going to apply for it. I applied, did the interview, got the position somehow, God's will. And, now I'm obviously in my role as an automation tester. So as Andre mentioned, like situations where you had to basically learn on the job, that was my entire job. Like, I didn't know anything going into it. So everything was learning from me from the very beginning. And as John mentioned, having a mentor definitely helped me adapt into my role. I had a senior person who was on my specific team who definitely helped me. It also helped that he was a alumni of Metro. So he basically did the same path I did. He got his internship, started as an intern at Physicians when he was still at Metro, and then went full time. So he definitely helped me get familiar with the role, get familiar with the position, know what I was supposed to do, know the software that we use, all of the technical terms, basically, because that was like my first real IT. Well, this is my first real IT position. So basically, I was just learning from scratch as I went on the job each day. And luckily, it was easy for me because, like, I had those people there. I had the willingness to learn. So I think somebody down here mentioned that, having that willingness to learn and that curiosity, being able to say, I'm not sure, or I don't know, can you help me, will definitely help you go a long way in IT. And you will have those people who are willing to help you and be that person for you. So you just have to be willing to ask and be willing to learn and do the extra work. So, yeah.
I would say I had a somewhat typical start, but there's there's some atypical aspects of it. So I've been in technology in some capacity for about 14 years since I was in high school. And it started out, my curiosity for computers stemmed from, frankly, not being able to play video games with my friends on computers while I was growing up. We didn't have the money to have a computer that could run them. And so I really wanted to figure out how can I build my own computer, fund it, that sort of thing, right? And so there's two different things that kind of came into play. One, I had some level of aptitude when it came to programming. I took coding classes and ended up going into advanced programming classes in my high school. And some of the people in there, this is when cryptocurrency was becoming a thing. Some of us got together and we looked at it as, hey, this is free money. We turn the computer on and then we get things that we can sell. And so we started mining crypto on some machines. I mean, we're not paying for the electricity at the house and that sort of thing. So it was free for us. I'm sure my parents didn't appreciate the bill, but anyways, we started making a little bit of money doing that. It was like free stocks. And then I started a job at Best Buy, which ended up being Geek Squad and computer sales and hardware, right? So really, really rudimentary start in high school. I was able to afford building my first computer, and then right out of high school, I had an opportunity to work for PayPal. I didn't work directly in technology at PayPal. However, I'm sure everyone in the room realizes PayPal is completely driven on technology. My position there, my longest held position there was actually in fraud, which is quite interesting. It required a knowledge of basic network understanding, how IP addresses, MAC addresses, all these things kind of work. And using some fairly advanced technology in order to figure out where money is being stolen from, how it's being stolen, and those sorts of things. And it did require quite a bit of understanding of just networks and computers in general, which while I was going to school and working at PayPal, I feel like school really set my knowledge up for success in the regard that I understood how IPs work. I understand how networks work. I understand how you can anonymize your location and how to kind of see through those things at my job at PayPal and looking at different fraud rings and different trends. I then worked at Apple for a brief stint and then ended up finding a job at a local small business, which was Run Networks. And I realized I wasn't super big on the corporate politics. That was just me personally. There's a lot of benefits to being part of a larger company, but I had interest in working in something different. I started as a help desk technician with Run Networks about a little over 7 years ago at this point, and quickly identified an opportunity with Brandon here to help grow the business. And so I was able to use my technical knowledge at that point to help grow the company in acquisition as well as bring on new clients, which has now kind of grown into what I do now, which is guiding strategy, right, and figuring out hardware for people. But I would say mentorship is really important. If you have someone that can help guide you along the way, or you can just spitball ideas with, that's huge. Having someone more experienced than you is huge. I have a number of mentors that are experienced in life and business, not necessarily technology, but they can really help point you down the right path. Not everything related to being an IT professional is knowledge pertaining to technology. A lot of it's just being business savvy. A lot of it is who do you know, and how do I, if I know I need to do something or want to do something, how do I even get there? Having people to brainstorm that with, I think, is really, really valuable and underrated. The other thing I would say is you have to have that curiosity. I think that's a theme you're hearing here. You got to be curious. You have to be willing to continue to learn. Technology is not going to stop changing. It's not going to stop progressing. That's one of the reasons I love Run Networks and being part of a managed IT company. Is we deal with so many different environments, like Brandon said, that I may be figuring out problems dealing with a very complex medical network, or a network that ties into a hospital system one day, and the next day I'm going over to figuring out how to migrate a legal system into a cloud infrastructure, and what are the pros, cons, and how to position that to the stakeholders. Right? You have to know how to research things. You have to know that you're curious about it, and I think having someone to just bounce ideas off of and spitball is really valuable. If you have that person, don't take that for granted.
So Ben says that he started with Run Networks and he started as a technician, and it's true. And that lasted, I think, 2 weeks. It was literally 2 weeks, maybe 2 months. But within his first I don't know, a couple of weeks, we had bought another company, and we had to visit with each one of those other companies and the clients of the company, and really just kind of get them onboarded. And Ben was integral to that. So then about 3 months later, we had another opportunity to buy another company, and that was a little bit more sales driven. We had to visit with each of those clients and actually deliver a proposal and that kind of thing. So we had a ton of practice in that proposal delivery process through those first couple months, and it worked out really, really nice. So then it went into where Ben was my sales assistant. And I don't know if you know, I'm not that good at sales. Okay, I'm more technical, not that good at sales. And so Ben was a sales assistant for me, and then it turned into where I was sort of his sales assistant. He would lead the conversations, and I would help him technically. And now he doesn't even invite me to sales meetings, and they let me out of the office every now and again. But it's worked, so that's why we run with that. Okay. The other thing I'll say is that in college, my grades weren't that good. Actually, they weren't that good because I was working so many jobs. But those jobs were why I was successful after college, and I really can attribute a lot of that success to the jobs and the internships that I had. One of them was retail, and one of my managers told me actually that I irritated one of the other managers because I asked too many questions. And that kind of got me thinking. I didn't know I asked a lot of questions. Evidently I do. And then another job that I had was it was the condensed matter physics research lab, and I managed the Linux machines in this lab. And man, I love Linux. It's a great OS, but it has no case for business, is what I'll say. Okay, it's a lot of fun, but there's no practical use for it in regular, everyday business. Okay, but I was thrown into that lab. They only had 3 or 4 computers, all Linux. I had absolutely no experience with Linux whatsoever. And the guy that hired me had graduated, so he was out of college. And I had no resources except Alta Vista. Google didn't exist in those days, so I had to Alta Vista everything. And so, I went into this thing, and I broke things left and right. And I was the only one that could fix it then. So that was a huge learning experience in that. So I would encourage you, when you have an opportunity, break things and then fix it. Maybe not production things, but break your own environment that you can fix. Okay. Then I had 2 other jobs, all at the same time, actually. So one of them was it was Equitable of Iowa. So what we did was we rolled out about 300 machines to this office, and it was over about 6 months. In the evening, when the office was quiet, we would come in and roll out about 25 to 30 machines overnight. And it was kind of fun, rolling just new machines, setting them up, putting them on desks and that kind of thing. We didn't even do that much with Windows or anything. But that actually turned into another part-time job my last semester in college with the same people. And another related job I had was at Tone's Brothers Spices. And that was a similar concept, kind of Y2K related. So with those 2 jobs, what I realized was that there was this one guy that worked on the help desk at the insurance place, and he had been there for 5 years and did not know what the company did. And I thought, this is so interesting that he's happy with what he's doing. He's really good, but he was so far removed from the business, he didn't even know what the company that he worked for did. So it was interesting and kind of concerning at the same time. And then when I was working at the Spice office, the Spice is a manufacturing plant. There was the office portion, which was your typical office. Again, you could work in that and not really know what the company did. And then I got to go out on the plant every now and again. And that was an experience. It's enjoyable to drive by a spice company. It is not enjoyable to be in the actual plant where the spices are to be made. That'll stay with you. It'll stay with you for days. Okay. And so what I realized out of those 2 companies was I don't know that I really enjoyed working for the very, very large companies. I liked being more of the hands-on to know kind of what was happening in the actual company. And I sort of got that out of that physics research lab because I was very independent and had total control over everything. At the same time, to try to buy something, it was government, so I had to go through some sort of approval process to buy something, which was interesting. And so what I'll say out of that is, when I came out of college, I knew I did not want to go to a very, very large company. I wanted to work more in everyday small business. I had an opportunity to interview at 3M, and I thought, what am I doing? I don't want to do this, And luckily, I had an opportunity to stay in Omaha and work for, which was the only other company I worked for since college, working for a small business. And that was a blast. My first few days, my desk wasn't even put together. It was kind of a mess going into it. But I stayed there for 7 years, and it was the best thing I did.
All right, thank you. And I think the next question is, sort of everyone has already touched on it, with like the emphasis on continuous learning and resilience, and making connections with people. So as our students think about like the rest of their educational and career building journey, what skills or qualities do you think have contributed most to your success? So I'm thinking also if you can separate the soft skills and then the technical skill side of things. And it sounds like everyone's saying technical skills you can learn, no problem. But are there any maybe like, if I have the opportunity to learn this in class, I absolutely have to gain this technical skill. And then on top of that, soft skills that you would emphasize in your respective fields.
So you mentioned soft skills. Absolutely, soft skills are important. It's important to be able to talk about yourself. In the interview process, Ben and I actually interview all of our technical hires, and we ask everybody a few questions. We have canned questions, about 30 different questions, to really draw out a conversation from people that we're interviewing. One of them, though, is, are you a gamer? What do you play? And then I always ask the question, what's your rig? And that's when I step back, because I don't quite know the answers of this. But what we're looking for is somebody who can talk about something they're excited about. Did they do something on their own? And did they solve that problem? Another question I'll ask is, what was your favorite class in college? Because I want to know that people enjoyed something out of college. What did they get out of college, right? And it's so amazing. I've had people that we've interviewed that can't answer that question. And it's disturbing, actually. They didn't get hired. But my thought is, you need to be able to talk about yourself and highlight something that you've done. What is your skill? What's your flair that you're bringing to the company? Why would I hire you? And you need to be able to talk about that and have a conversation with people.
I would say for our technical team, subnetting, understanding how IPs work, how computers talk to servers, how to VLAN things, those are all really important technical skills, because we do a lot of networking, right? Our responsibility partially is to set up networks, meaning we have a server, we have cloud environment, we have computers, we have printers, and we also have compliance requirements or regulations depending on the industry. And so you need to figure out, how do we get all these things to talk together and work together, while also checking the box of compliance, which a lot of times means separating them, right? So you may realize you have a guest network, right? And then there's an internal network in a lot of places you go. To do that properly, you need to understand what's called VLANing, which goes into subnets and IP ranges and that sort of thing. So for us, I would say in the technical capacity, that would be like one of those skills one of those things you really, really want to learn while you're in school, if you can, is networking, IPs, subnets, as well as VLANing and how switching works, right? Because there's different layers to the switches, and not all switches can do that. So those would be like really good technical skills. Going on about one of Brandon's points a little more, I think the competency is almost, plug your ears, is almost more important than your education. Education is certainly important. It is extremely important that you show that you can stick to something, do something difficult, and get a really good foundation to build your career off of for a number of years, right? School is important. What accompanies that is demonstrating competency. If you can come in and share, not only have I gone to school, but here's how I applied some of the stuff I learned at school in my own life, whether it be out of curiosity or just because you want to say, you can demonstrate competency, that's a really cool thing to do. One of the hires that we had was an individual who was going to school for, I think, cybersecurity actually, and he ended up monetizing a personal Minecraft server. He built it from scratch. There's some programming involved, there's some hardware involved, there's a little bit of networking involved, and it was a passion project of his. He ended up making money off of it. And he was a super sharp kid, but him being able to talk through that project he did and why he did it and how he did it, and he was vulnerable and explained, here are some of the problems I had and I couldn't solve these things, right? That was, I would say, one of the most valuable parts of the conversation that we had. And that person has moved forward in their cybersecurity career at this point. But the competency and curiosity factor is huge. On the soft skill side of things, I'll touch on that real quick and then I'll stop talking. But I think something that a lot of people don't realize is in most technical roles, you may have your heads down and working on computers and not having to socialize a whole lot. But there is a certain point where maybe you have to interact with your managers or you have to talk to a stakeholder. So if you're doing database administration, I imagine you have a lot of conversations with developers, and how you talk to your peers is probably not how you're going to talk to a developer or how you're going to talk to a C-level executive or those sorts of things, right? And so being able to have a professional conversation and being able to speak to people, I think, is really important, and making sure you don't get complacent on that side of things.
Okay, you kind of took what I was going to say. So from a technical standpoint, I would definitely say, as Ben said, knowing computers, knowing the networks, even if you are not necessarily doing something with computers or networks, anything like that, I think that's still an important skill to know in IT. Even if you have a minor issue, like your sound is not working on your computer, you'll be surprised how many people are like, oh my God, my sound's not working, I don't know how to fix it. Like, I don't know where to go or what to do. So at least just having a basic knowledge of how computers work, how things interact, I think is an important technical skill. For my specific role, I would say having one specific programming language that you are proficient in. It's obviously a great thing to know many programming languages, but if you have one programming language that you're like, you give me any project, I can write it in Java or I can write it in Python, whatever your programming language is. I think that's something very important to have if you're trying to do something with development or anything like writing scripts or anything like that. I think that's important because I'm sure you've heard, if you know like one programming language, it makes it easier to learn other programming languages. So I would definitely say knowing one programming language that you can do basically write any project in. From a soft skill perspective, I would say being able to break down technical terms to a person that is not a technical person, kind of as Ben said. Like in my role, I'm often communicating with people that are in the business, and they're not developers, they're not testers, they don't know all of the technical terms. So if I have an issue or something that I'm trying to explain to them, I have to be able to explain it in a way that they can understand. And to piggyback off of that, also being able to write an email, write a good email. Yeah. Being able to explain what you're trying to say in writing if you're not able to be face to face with that person. You would be surprised how many emails I get or I read and I'm like, I have no idea what you're trying to say. And then that in turn leads to, you having to meet face to face or kind of chase down what that person was trying to get at. So I would just say, being able to explain what you're trying to say through an email and being able to break down technical terms to, people who are not technical. So, yeah.
So both on the soft skills and hard skills, I think they're even more weight should be put on the side of soft skills. Hard skills for most companies, they'll be willing to teach you and train you. But if there's one in particular I could throw out, it's the same thing that Ben mentioned is, learning the OSI layers, data flow, power flow, anything that comes to technology, one of those two, they're always going to be involved. On the soft skills side, hungry, humble, and smart. Being hungry, always developing, always learning, always asking questions, trying to gain a better understanding of why and how things work. Humble. Once you know that stuff, be eager to share it. Don't keep it for yourself. And also, don't be boisterous about it. You can have pride with what you know, but at the same time, by pushing it out there or treating people different that might not know that information is no way of going, no way of working. And then the last one, smart. Being able to find answers. Sometimes you might have a question and you get an answer, and the answer might be, I don't know. Run down the different steps of what that might possibly look like. I'm going to, company shout out again, use Google. Find different ways to be really proficient at Google. I imagine most of these panelists can say that there's a solution that was not in a book or not easily findable in a book, but was easily findable on Google or another resource, or Google points you to a resource where you can learn that information. Humble, hungry, and smart. And OSI layers, power flow, data flow, you learn those things, you'll be able to do my job very, very easily. So that's all I have.
So I'll focus more on the soft skills because I think all the guys previous to me have covered the hard skills. Basically, on the hard side, understanding how data works, and being able to take a concept from a whiteboard drawing and convert it into actually being programmable. Understanding logic steps is important. But on the soft skills side, for when I interview, and like Brandon said, I am looking for passion. I can teach you anything, right? I've taught myself how to do anything. I can teach you just about anything, but it's passion. So I have a very unique interview style. So the first question I ask is, tell me your hobby. And I'll let you talk about it, whether you love dogs or whether you love cars or whether you love computers, whatever it is. Because what that does is actually sets your body language. And I understand I've got a benchmark on your body language. Then every question I ask beyond that, I'm measuring against that, right? Because you will be at your happiest when you talk about the thing you love doing. So then I ask you about a language you're programming in or a project you've done. I can measure that really easily. So learn to get a passion for whatever you're doing. Do something that you're passionate about. Don't do it for money. Because if you're actually passionate about what you do, the money will come. If you do it for money, it shows. Right? Because when you do it for money, you're just trying to tick a box off. I've got to get this line of code written. I've got to get this program out the door. It doesn't matter the quality because you're looking for money. But if you've got a passion, like one of my things is when I still write code or when I ever wrote code, I know my code is not the best, but I never wanted someone to ever look at it and say, God, he took a shortcut. Right? It may have not been good. I mean, my coding and my skills have improved over time and technology has improved over time, but always do the best you can. So that passion is truly what I try to measure when I am trying to hire people. So the other thing I can just touch on real quickly is communication. It is not really smart to use acronyms and big words to try to confuse non-technical people. A lot of people try to do that. They think they're actually setting themselves apart from them. It really is not. If you're talking to a business person or a customer, get down to their level so you can speak. Because it's better to get your message across than trying to show that you know a couple of big words that you can throw in or some technology term that they have no idea about, right? So really be able communication. I mean, everyone in this panel has already talked about communication, whether it's through email or text message or some sort of messaging platform or in person. Make sure that the most valuable person to me is someone who can communicate their thoughts at the level that the person listening can understand it. And I think that's a very valuable skill. So.
Yeah, I'll start with the soft skills. Well, and I just want to emphasize what Damian just said about communication. It is extremely important in the business world. I would say businesses are desperate for people that can communicate well, whether that is written communication or verbal communication. Business communication is a little bit more maybe a lot more formal than how we interact with our friends, with family. I have 3 daughters that are in their early 20s and late teens, and how they send text messages and communicate with me is not how it would just not be acceptable in the business world. So be able to, if we're talking written communication, be able to make proper sentences, use proper grammar, proper spelling, don't use abbreviations. Get some practice on that. I'm sure many people in this room, your professors, teachers, would love to help develop writing skills. Take a class if you need to. You've got to be able to explain often complex, difficult, technical things to non-technical people. It's great when you can communicate across the aisle with another technical person, but you've got to communicate with your manager. You've got to communicate with C-level. You've got to be able to communicate with business people. And that means bringing technical things down to a level they can understand, and that are meaningful and impactful. I would also say be comfortable in a setting like this, being able to get in front of people and talking. Take a speech class. If you've taken one, take it again. My job is primarily remote, so I spend a lot of times on Microsoft Teams. But I need to be comfortable in that. I need to be able to speak, and I need to be semi-articulate so that people can understand me, right? So communication, I really think that is important. On the technical side, figure out how you learn. The up-and-coming technologies today, whether it's on-premise or cloud, whether it's Java programming or React programming or PHP, whatever it is, the cool stuff today is not going to be cool tomorrow. I guarantee it. So how do you learn? How can you keep those skills up to date with whatever the fun technology is or the technology that employers are looking for? You're going to leave here with a great skill set. And 18 months from now, it's probably going to be obsolete because technology changes so fast. So how can you keep those skills current? How can you learn on an ongoing basis? We've talked about mentors. They're great. Find somebody that wants to invest in you. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for what you know. So how can you keep those skills current? That'd be my question.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think I have, just in the interest of time too, I'm going to skip some of these questions that you all kind of already touched on with like advice for someone aspiring to enter the field. I think let's end on this question. How do you stay updated on industry trends and advancements? Are there any particular tools or methods that you use for yourself? And if you would recommend those to our students as well. So.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there is only so many hours in a day, right? And I'm going to guess that a lot of the people up here, their day is like mine. You're in meetings, you're solving problems, you're fixing issues. There's not a lot of time to learn from 8 to 5. So that means you've got to carve out some time. Maybe it's at the end of the day, maybe it's some time on a weekend. Maybe it's once a month you block out time, whatever, to do that learning, which goes back to what I just said. How do you learn? You have to know how you learn. If you're an audio visual person, maybe YouTube, maybe that'd be a great place. You can watch lots and lots of people share their knowledge there. Maybe reading is it. So go grab a book off of Amazon on something new and read it that way, but figure out how you learn. Carve out some time because you're not going to get it done 8 to 5. There's just too much to do day to day to learn on the job. I apologize. I forgot what else you asked.
Any resources or tools
Yeah. So Google is your friend, right? Google knows everything. So be really good at Google searches. Figure out what are the ways to trigger better results. Learn to use Google. That's all.
So I have this thing that I do from a learning perspective. I pick skills, and rather than getting on social media or anything like that, I try to do these short learning things, 3 to 5 minutes a day or at a time, where I would either read an industry magazine. If I read an industry magazine and I'm going through an article and see things that I don't understand, then revert back to something like Google or other industry groups that you can join. I'm a member of many CTO groups that I can go into some of their conferences or actually ask people or post a question. There are lots of message boards and bulletin boards out there that you can post stuff on. So it's really about trying to find a way to learn something every day, or at least research something every day. Because like you said, it's difficult to do it 8 to 5. We're pretty busy. And that's why when I started this whole thing, the first thing I said today is, on that first or second job you get, if you've been hired for 8 hours, you're really going to work 16. Because that time beyond the office is where you're going to do some of your learning, and that's where you're going to keep your skills up, right? So if you, and like many of you, the panelists here have said, if you don't keep your skills up, you will be left behind. 12 months in technology today, you're ancient. You can't, if you're trying to carry forward a 12-month-old skill, things are changing so fast. The things you can do with computers today so much, and now looking at AI coming in, and that's a pretty scary concept for most developers if you're not growing on a daily basis. So try to find the time every day to learn something. Social media, TikToks kind of things, they won't teach you anything. Try to find something that will teach you a life skill. And the life skills can be not just computers, right? It could be cars. I think Brandon said he's got some old cars. I'm an old car guy. I collect cars. So if I'm not working on technology, I'm working on a car. Because at the end of the day, the concept's all similar. It's all logical.
So one of the biggest things that I use to stay current is, it's going to sound kind of weird, but YouTube. There's plenty of security researchers and technology individuals on YouTube that will share, this is what's going on in this week or this month in tech, and these are new things that most people in the industry should or could be aware of that could help them. Another thing is, Udemy. They have courses. It's $12, and you can learn a skill that you might be needed for a new job or for an interview that you want to prepare for. Learning skills through that way, always developing, as the other panelists have also mentioned. Trying to think, there's one more thing. I think I lost it though. Yeah, that's it. Apologies.
Okay. So for me, as John said, within your 8-hour day, you're not going to have much time for learning. With me still also being in school full time, that's even less for me. So the way that I kind of stay up to date with IT is, as they've mentioned already, Google, YouTube. Also a good one was Udemy. I'm currently taking a few courses on Udemy, watching videos on there, trying to stay up to date. Also, the way I stay up to date is from my peers, my colleagues. Part of our job in IT is to, constantly look for new ways to improve, look for new ways to do things that are already existing, do them differently. So, I'm constantly finding out from my colleagues like, oh, have you heard about this new software? Have you heard about this cloud-based application or something like that, whatever it is. And then, when they mention it, I go and I read up on it. So, and then also with me, like I said, still being in school full time, that's also another avenue for me to learn through my classes. I might learn something new, which causes me to dig deeper. And then I'm finding out, oh, okay, this was at the time of this, when this curriculum was written, this is the way that they did it, or this is the software that they use. But, now they have some new and improved software out there that, maybe could be incorporated some way, somehow. So that's kind of how I stay up to date.
For those, Udemy or Udemy, however it's pronounced, Udemy is what everyone is saying. That is a great place to go get information and courses, right? I learn a little differently. My learning starts with stories and curiosity. One of the things that I listen to specifically is Darknet Diaries. It's a podcast where they just tell different kinds of stories about different kind of breaches, whether it be physical pen testing stories and how someone physically snuck into a bank and got all the way back into the vault, or how a hacker stole billions of dollars from a crypto site, things like that, right? And so for me, I need to figure out, what do I want to learn more about? What am I curious about? I don't know everything that's out there. That's hard to figure out. What do I want to dive into, right? It's very clear at work, like, hey, I need to learn this, or I need to learn this skill, right? That's where Udemy comes into play. That's where, working with peers and going to a course comes into play. But when you're at the point where it's like, hey, I just want to kind of know what else is out there. I think podcasts and listening to stories is a great way to start that curiosity. So I'll hear something like in one of the Darknet Diary podcasts, someone was explaining, here's how I got into these computers and I performed this function, use PuTTY to go over here. I'm like, how did they do that? And then I will go start leveraging my Google skills and figure out, okay, so how do I get into a layer 2 switch if I don't have the administrative passwords? How can I reset the passwords? How can I, you're just starting to, you got to figure out what is interesting to you. You got to hear something and then start digging into it. And then if you end up wanting to learn more about, okay, well, how would I prevent that point of vulnerability, or how would I, do something else? That's where those formal courses and curriculums and stuff can really come into play. But for me, I've chosen to replace listening to music during my commutes with podcasts. I think hearing stories from reputable people is a really good starting point. And don't underestimate Udemy. There's a lot of really good curriculum there.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned Reddit. Are you guys on Reddit or not? Is that okay? I was on a advisory board, and the marketing team asked the board members where their social media time is spent, and every single one of them was on Reddit, and so they started advertising on Reddit. But Reddit is really good. Don't get me wrong. I will just encourage you, don't get caught up in the negative and the complaints on there. What is it with those people? How they come? It is such a complainers environment there for some reason. So don't get caught up on that. Just keep that in mind. But if there's really good content, what I enjoy about it is people will state a problem, and it's the good old-fashioned community where they have a problem and everyone's trying to solve it. So that's really good. YouTube, of course. There's one, I think, is it T-365, I think is what it is. There's this guy that's doing a lot of PowerShell and Office 365 management. That's really good. Paired with Googling and finding more detail on that, of course. And then Audible for me. I love business books. I don't have time to read. And for some reason, I can't read fiction. But you give me a good business book and I can do it. So, yeah, I know. I'm working through that. But there's a lot of good, it's mostly business, I would say, but some of that is still about how to work through your career. And that's really good too.
If I can jump back in for a moment, I recalled what I was going to say. Home labs. If you have a project or a server or something that you want to create or work on, that's also going to expose you to quite a few new technologies and new things that, once again, is going to require you to learn about it and grow in Google. So.
All right, thank you. So I want to carve out the next about 5 minutes or so for questions from the audience, and including those of us joining virtually. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and I will pick them up. Any questions?
So are any of you guys looking to mentor somebody? Okay. I do have a question for Jake. So I actually have a Google interview on the 27th. It's the technical interview. It's actually for the data center technician position. So they sent me the resources to say, hey, prepare for, OS stuff, networking stuff, all that. Outside of that sort of prep, are there things that you would recommend for me to learn, or I guess certain areas within those specific things? So like OS, they mentioned Linux was important. Networking, they were really vague, and networking's really big, and I can't really brush up on everything. What would you say would be the best thing to focus on that, for example?
That's a great question. I got to be very careful how I say this. I got my manager in the room. Well, maybe I should defer to him. He's done more interviews than I have, so. I'll give you the correct answer.
Enrique Velasquez. I'm one of the managers at the data center here. So in general, we have knowledge-based questions, and depending on the level that you try to apply to, we will go into depth into things like basic networking, really. I mean, you're not building a network. We're maintaining a network. A lot of it's automated. A lot of it is configured. And our techs have to do a lot of jobs a lot of it mainly in layer 1 of the OSI model, but understanding that, kind of the questions are going to be in the sense of, when you run into a problem, what would you do, or kind of thing. We do a lot of the questions. Our focus on the machine side, on the server side, so understanding all the functions of a computer system is probably one thing to focus on. But yeah, I mean, we're not trying to hire an engineer for a data center technician. I'll just say that.
Other questions from the audience?
I just want to say that thank you for all the amazing advices. But I wanted to ask, like, for example, if you're preparing for like a technical interview, but in like a more of like a software position, right? How would you guys like practice your technical interviews? Do you guys have like a specific strategy in mind for practicing lead code or code forces, or are you guys just like brute forcing through the problems?
I wanted to clarify, that was for a software development interview, right?
Yeah, the problems regarding to like lead code or code forces.
Is that you guys?
All right. One thing with leak code, I know I'm a data center technician, but interviews at Google, some of them kind of carry over the same ideas. If a question's asked, or explain how you do this, asking more and more questions to get better idea of, kind of where they're going, or asking them to rephrase a question might be very helpful. I know that's a very soft skill thing, but I just thought I'd add it.
I totally agree. I mean, I think that asking more questions to show that you have at least have an understanding of what we're asking you to solve, right? So being able to ask more questions that drive down towards a problem, it really is about problem solving.
While we don't do software development directly in-house, one of the things that I always recommend to people is if you get to a point where you don't have an answer, you've asked good, effective questions, I would recommend, instead of expressing, I don't know, express, well, while I don't know, here's kind of what I would research to figure it out. That's demonstrating that competency with being able to research and identify and find solutions to problems, right? So just try not to say I don't know is my biggest thing.
We have this one question at the end of the interview process, and this is after a lot of more technical networking questions. The question is something to the effect of, it's 4 o'clock on a Friday, and you receive a phone call. The office has half the network works and half of it doesn't. No internet works. There's a couple of switches. There's some servers. I'll be the end user. Walk me through what we should try to do. And I stop and I wait. And it is the most painful time to sit and wait for somebody to ask me questions. So the more successful candidates we have will say, have you done this? What about this? What works? What doesn't? And if you stop and you say, I don't know, I can't hire you, right? I cannot hire somebody who won't even try to find out more information about what it is. So if there's a question about something that's not working, try to figure out what you know about the situation and what you don't know to try to get to something close to a resolution on it. And that'll go a long ways. Yeah.
Other questions?
So I am still in my very first level of classes. I'm still trying to find a section of like technology that really interests me. It all interests me, but I want to find something to major in, basically. And so I was wondering if you guys, I've been going to different panels, different like events online, trying to learn about like cybersecurity versus IT versus like all these little specifications within them. Do you have a suggestion other than YouTube or podcasts as to find something to, it all interests me, but I want to find like a specialization, I guess, or is that a bad idea? Should I just keep my mind open to whatever comes?
one of the things you can do is try to find some short-term internships too, right? And we actually do a lot of those, so if you're interested, look me up. We do a lot of internships on the development side of stuff, the software development, full stack development, stuff like that. Internships would be probably the best way to find it, in my view, because you actually get to try something. Because watching a YouTube or watching, going to a panel, you get some information, but really understanding, do I really want to be looking at a screen full of code all day? You'd only know that if you actually went out and did that work for a little while. So internships, a lot of the companies that are represented here probably do offer internships. There's a lot of good internship opportunities in Nebraska, so that would be my way.
Yep. One thing I'll say too, I don't have any current internships available, but a managed service provider, or MSP, is a really good place to, that's what we are. It's because we work with network servers, switching, cloud, everything. The few things we don't do are like voice over IP, programming, and a handful of things like physical wiring and whatnot. But you will get exposure to a tremendous amount of different segments of technology. So looking for an internships are extremely valuable. I agree completely. If you can find one in programming and find one at a managed service provider, companies that do multiple things is kind of the point, right? Not just a segmented internship where you're only resetting passwords. That's what I would encourage you to do. And I agree full-heartedly. Try a few of them. The best way to learn is being in it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we don't have any open internships at Mutual of Omaha right now either, but when we do, in our technology area, often we rotate an intern through different departments. They'll get to spend 3 or 4 weeks with security, a couple weeks with datacom or networking. They'll spend some time as a developer. They'll spend time on my organization database. Because a lot of people come in, they're like, well, I just like IT in general. I don't know, how do I pick? How do I know where I'm going to be passionate about? So if you can spend 3 or 4 weeks on the job in different organizations, you probably can find that passion. So, yeah.
Just to add one more thing. So one of the companies I founded about 2 years ago is a company called Nebraska Innovation Labs. It's a nonprofit that helps students like yourselves actually get that first step between education and the Mutual Omaha, the full-time job. So what we do is we actually provide internships. The way we provide internships is we actually help people start businesses. So we may be building a medical product today. We may be building a product for the military tomorrow. We may be building a product for the manufacturing, construction business the day after. So it's great internships. We're actually seeing how all the different industries work, but all within a programming kind of environment. So it's all about database, full stack development, algorithm development, stuff like that.
So this is one of my favorite things of technology. I keep saying that phrase. I'm sorry, but being in IT is you can start with something, realize you don't like it, and pivot into something else, and that is very, very common. The hospital I was working at, my IT manager started as a nurse. Turned out they didn't like being a nurse. Worked their way into becoming a help desk, moving their way up to becoming a manager, and it was totally unrelated to what they started with or what they thought they were going to be in their career. So if you find something, try it for a year. Within that time period, you'll probably get a taste of, oh, is this something that I could see myself growing and developing and becoming very, very proficient at? Or is this something that it's good to be aware of, but maybe I got to check for something else? So.
And I'll say, life goes fast. So don't sit somewhere where you hate it for too long. Give it some time, but don't give it too much time.
I'm Kyle Arn. I'm a data center technician at Google as well. If you're trying to figure out kind of what you're passionate about just in general in IT, I would look at what do you love and what are you passionate about outside just in life in general. And then if it's something like music, finding where tech and what, like say a company like Spotify or a production company, where your passion and tech can intersect. Look at what positions those companies are hiring for. Because I think the win-win, I think a lot of folks here would agree that if you can find where your passion, technology aside, and tech connect, then that's where you're gonna excel, because you will love what you're doing no matter what. I mean, it'll drive itself.
On the panel, we have networking and database administration, maybe some programming as well here, and then I would say we're a generalist. But what we haven't really discussed is the whole compliance aspect of it. There's a whole group of IT, which isn't really even IT. It is compliance, about making sure that the policies that IT is enforcing follows some sort of a compliance standard. And so that's where you need to think about, do you like switches? Do you like programming? Databases, which is somewhere in between. Do you not want to focus on one thing, and do you like the variety every day, just something randomly new every day? Or do you like the sort of business side of it, and that might be a compliance aspect of it too?
All right, so I think we have a couple of questions in the Zoom chat.
Hi, y'all. So our first question is, and I'm going to combine a couple because we have a few of pretty similar questions. So a lot of our students are going for their 2-year degree with us, and they find that it can be pretty challenging to find an entry-level job with that. So do you have any advice on how to get an entry-level job in IT without experience, or for companies that are saying it's an entry-level job, but they're looking for 5 years of some kind of relevant experience?
Well, like I said, we actually do hire straight out of college and provide that first entry-level job. Now, the jobs with us, our internships are not easy. I would not say it's easy. It's not a walk in the park. You're going to come in and you're going to actually build a product for a founder that has a limited budget. But that product is going to go live at some point within the next 6 months to a year. So you got some pressure. You're going to actually learn how to build software. But we do hire internship straight out of college. What we do then is we actually then provide them hopefully a gateway and a pathway to go get their first full-time job with that experience.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Mutual of Omaha has an extensive internship program, and we've partnered quite a bit with MCC over the years. My team in particular, over the last couple of years, has successfully brought in 3 interns, which we have transitioned into full-time employees, and I know that's true across the company that they do that. So, if maybe look at an internship, it's not always ideal, but if the company is really invested in their interns, and you show up, you do a good job, you're excited about the work that you're given, maybe that can turn into something more.
I would say locally, CareerLink. There's some postings there, and then also LinkedIn. I don't think Indeed is huge on business and internships, but you need to be your own advocate. That's for sure. Don't be afraid to look up a letter of application. That's a more formal document, but look up that process and maybe write an email to the HR or hiring manager and ask if there's any positions. They may not have something posted, but they might have an option for something behind the scenes.
What was that? You said
a letter of application. That's the formal document, which is asking if there is a position open and if you can apply for it.
One thing that I've observed is a lot of people fresh out of college have an unrealistic expectation of starting salary, and that's one of the things that actually disqualifies a lot of people from entry-level jobs. You got to be realistic. I'm going to put that out there. Mm-hmm. You can earn a lot in technology very quickly, but you do not start there. So just level set that expectation, and I think that may open up your eyes a little bit. I understand there's people in different positions and different life circumstances, and you have to make a certain amount of money. But that's like one of the biggest things that I run into when we have green individuals applying. The other thing I'll say is corporate typically requires experience. I've observed that a lot of larger companies, enterprise, not all, but a lot do require experience and state it's entry level, and that's really hard to get. That's where you need an internship. That's where you need someone that gave you a chance. What I'll say is don't be afraid to look at locally owned smaller businesses. Companies that have under a couple hundred employees, they're more likely to give you an opportunity, or at least an opportunity to have a conversation to demonstrate your competency and your technical knowledge. So don't wedge yourself into looking at these giant conglomerates and not looking at your other options, and be realistic on what you can start at in that field.
So what would be like a hard number? Like what would the realistic number be?
So what would the realistic number be for what, dollars?
Yeah.
Starting out? It really depends what you're doing. So in our industry, for help desk engineer, for example, you'll see anywhere from $17 to $23 an hour is a realistic starting point. You guys can probably speak to your respective industries better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, in the programming world, it's probably anywhere from 20 to $30 an hour, just depending on your level of experience.
I guess I'll speak from my point of view, since I did start as an intern at Physicians. My starting was $22 an hour, being a an automation intern. So it like they said, it just honestly depends on what you're doing. I'm sure as if you're going into like development or something, you would probably make a little bit more or something, but that's just kind of my experience. I was $22 an hour. So
Going back to that previous question about how to get into companies, your classmates are going to hopefully eventually be in the company, and that connection that you have with them could be a step into the door. Another thing is, I've worked for 3 companies that have had over 10,000 employees, and this is something I learned on TikTok years ago. But HRIS, HRIS, it's basically it's a system that many companies use for application reading. And if you make a resume that is like HRIS compliant, put keywords in there that are very important. And what it does is, when it goes through like a company called Workday, which many large companies will use, it will pull out those keywords, and that'll bring your resume to have human verification. I can't guarantee anything, but it's worked really well for me. And like I said, I've been at 3 companies that use Workday with over 10,000 employees. So that's something to look into.
Sorry, one more comment. On the topic of dollars, the other thing I'll encourage you to do is, when you're talking to a potential employer, ask how they do continuing education and how they incentivize employees. For example, we have a very clear path. You start at a certain dollar amount in that range I gave you if you come in as a help desk technician 1. But we actually have, if you take these certifications and you continue your education that we pay for, we will give you these dollar amount in annual raises. There's a lot of companies out there that have a structured raise program basically that aligns with continuing education. So those are things that you can ask as well. Don't let the initial dollar amount deter you from pursuing an interest in a company.
Thank you for that, y'all. Another question I have is from Chantal. I think a skill that I didn't realize was important to IT positions because it doesn't scream IT is project management skills. Would you recommend project management as a hard skill to learn that's universally useful? And on that same topic, are there any certifications that you've obtained that you never use or that you think are overhyped?
So at Google, we have many projects that are going on. We have a lot of PMs. One thing that I've found that is a very common thing is people do not join Google as PMs. They get the technical knowledge that they need about what they're going to be learning or leading, and they'll be in that role for 1 or 2 years, and then they'll step into like a PM temporary role or PM permanent role. What was the second half of the question?
Are there any certifications you've obtained that you never use or you think are overhyped?
So So I'm former Air Force, and they say if you get Security Plus, that's your way to get into the government, and it's more or less to check a box. But what you learn in that certification, it's very high level security principles, which none of it's really technically applicable, other than okay, I got the piece of paper, I know about these principles. But that goes both ways. It tells the government, hey, I'm able to work on systems because I have that certification. But I mean, at the same time, military pushes people through them that brain dump that information, and you're good for 3 years once you have that certification. So,
on the contrary to what he said about like the PMs, I would say at Physicians Mutual, what I noticed is that our PMs A lot of times they don't start out with that technical knowledge. They kind of gain that as they go through the job working with whichever teams they're working with. So I would say if you are interested in maybe like IT, but you're not really technical, I'm sure there are some companies out there that, you might not have to have that technical knowledge right up front. You could gain that as you go. So
I can't tell from the question if the person's asking specifically about a PM role or just having project management skills. So I'm gonna attack it from the second standpoint. Most large companies, maybe even some smaller companies, have dedicated project managers, but they're usually very focused on hours and cost of the project and deadlines, the milestones, right? You got to be able to set, as an individual contributor, your priorities and make sure you're meeting those milestones. In technology, you're always getting pulled in many different directions. You've got production support or break fix issues that are coming in. You've got major project work that you got to do. You've got tickets that are coming in for asking for help or consultation, right? You've got communication that you've got to get out to your manager, other teams, what have you. So on a day-to-day basis, you've got to be able to prioritize your work so that you're getting those important things done by the deadlines that you've been given. You don't have a professor looking over your shoulder saying, hey, remember I gave you the syllabus and in 2 weeks you've got that paper due. And then, hey, remember in 1 week you've got that paper due. You're going to be given a task. You're going to be told a date. You might not hear anything more about it until you don't deliver. And then everybody's going to be saying, where is it? So learning how to manage your workload, get the things done that you need to, yeah, that's important. But if we're speaking about project managers as a role, that's just a little bit different. As far as certifications, I agree with much of what has been said. A lot of times they're a check the box exercise. Maybe they help you get in the door, get through HR. Many people may not realize that resumes, when they're submitted, they go through lots of screenings, right? First, you just got to get the computer system that's going to analyze it to accept it and parse it correctly. Well, then it's probably going to go to an HR representative who knows nothing about the job that you've applied for. They're just looking to see, do you have the relevant experience, the relevant education? Do you have the right keywords on your resume? And if so, they're going to rubber stamp it and send it over to the hiring manager. That's the person you want to see your resume because they're the ones making the decision. They're going to determine who comes in for that interview. So it kind of seems unfair, but you kind of got to game the system to get through the computer and the HR person that's going to screen you out. So yeah, hope that helps.
Just to add one more piece of clarification that aligns with what he had mentioned. My fiance is a senior project manager in a technology company. She recently went through her PMP, which is the professional or project management professional certification. If you don't have an interest in project management as a whole, I would not invest time or money into that until you know that's what you want to do, is what I'll say. Like everyone else has mentioned, there are certainly components of project management that help with your day-to-day job. And then for us, CompTIA has some good certs, some not so good certs. I would say A+ is typically not one that we would recommend formally, but Network Plus and Security Plus are excellent.
All right, thank you. So apologize, we did go over time by quite a bit. So we did have the employees stop till 12, but for the purpose of the networking piece, if you have to go, I totally understand. But I do have the room for another half an hour till 12:30, so I'll be here. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone's participation, and thank you so much to our panelists. If we can get a round of applause for our panelists, it'd be great. Thank you.